Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast all about your Kindle. I'm Len Edgerly. Today is October 27th, 2017. Greetings from Ocean Park, Maine. I am looking out from a second-story bedroom at another cottage. This one is a winterized cottage, so it's the one we spent the summer at is pretty cold this time of year, but beautiful sunny day, surf crashing in front of me. We've got a big storm coming, so we're going to be back to Cambridge before the tropical storm hits. I'm sure it's going to be rainy and windy here tomorrow. I love watching storms here at the beach, but we'll be heading back to Cambridge for the rest of the year and then on to Denver. The interview this week is with two Amazon executives, which you're going to hear from. It's kind of an unusual opportunity I had. I was invited to an in-person demo of the new Kindle app for iOS and Android, but as it turned out, we were heading to New York the following day with our friends Tom and Tish from Casper, Wyoming, so to go down and back, it just didn't work out. But the Amazon PR department graciously set up a remote demo using the Chime, that's kind of the Amazon's Skype-like app. And I was in a closet at our new place in Cambridge because we don't have any kind of a work area, but there is a closet with good acoustics. So I had my laptop on a ironing board and was able to see the iPhone screen that the demo was done at, and then hear the guys talking about it. It lasted almost an hour, so I'm going to be giving you excerpts of that demo and then breaking in to make some commentary on it. I think it's a significant app. It's not the thing I'd probably normally devote an entire show to because, the old Kindle app was pretty good. This one is dramatically better in a lot of ways. I like the ability to listen to these guys talk about it because of the insight it shows on just how deep the teams that develop products for Kindle go into the ethos of it, the book-like aspects of it. And when you see the effort that goes into even quite small improvements, and then you think back on the 10 years that these teams have been at this platform, I found it eye-opening. I thought this explains some of how we got here, and I hope that you'll be interested to hear some of the background as well as get some tips on how you might be using this app. It should be available. The iOS app, I think, is a little fuller. I got one message saying that the Android app doesn't have the community or the Goodreads connection going yet, but that's probably going to be coming. And you just get it by updating your app on your smartphone the way you would any app, and you'll see a new icon and some of the improvements that you're going to hear about in the show. So let's start in with I'll have my guests introduce themselves, and you'll find a playful photo of them that was taken by Stephanie at Amazon that shows them posing next to a sculpture of the boy reading under a tree that I've seen at one of the Amazon buildings in Seattle. What you will hear was recorded on Monday of this week, and it was embargoed until the following day, Tuesday, when I put up a blog post that announced the aspects of it. But now you're going to hear that demo that I received on Monday. And it took place in New York City at one of the Amazon buildings, so a different place than when I went down a couple of weeks ago to see the all-new Kindle Oasis.
Hi, Len. We spoke last year when we announced Page Flip. My name is Mike Torres. I run the product management and design teams here at Kindle.
Great.
And hi, Len. My name is Seth. I don't think I've had the chance to meet you in person yet, but I'm the creative director for the Kindle reading experiences, so on the design side.
Seth's last name is Micarelli. We'll hear from him a little later. Let's listen now to Mike as he gives some of the background that led to the new design for the Kindle app.
So, Len, I've been at Kindle for about 3 years now. Our mission remains the same. It's really to inspire the world to read more and to get more out of reading every day. And as we talked about last year, that mission is super important to us. We take it very seriously. Sort of everybody on the team, everybody's a reader. Everybody loves reading. Everybody is fascinated with books. And so I think, what we'll show you today, I think, sort of demonstrates some of that passion that we have for reading. So as you know, as you were briefed on, the all-new Kindle Oasis was announced about 2 weeks ago. It'll be available on Halloween. I joke around that I might go out for Halloween trick-or-treating as a Kindle, because and it's actually perfect timing, so I can actually have the device in hand. If I were to go a day sooner, I'd be leaking with it, the device itself. But I will have the device in hand. I'm actually pretty excited about that. What we're here to talk to you about today is really the all-new Kindle app for iOS and Android, which will be available on October 24th, which is tomorrow morning. Now, before we jump in to that, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context on the Kindle business and what's been happening over the last year or so. The thing is, Kindle is still growing. Kindle is still, we're in our 10th year. We're about to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, and our U.S. and worldwide sales have grown through 2016 into 2017. 2017 promises to be our best year ever. We're very excited about that, as you can imagine. In fact, Prime Day this past July was actually our best sales day ever for Kindle devices. And here we are about to celebrate 10 years. We're really excited about that.
Yeah.
That I know it's really cool. That all comes sort of through the growth of programs like Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited, I know you're very familiar with it, so I won't spend a lot of time describing it, but, for about $10 a month, you can have access to over 1 million books, magazines, and audiobooks. You can read, you can listen, you can start books, and if you don't like them, go find another one. The beauty of Kindle Unlimited is the flexibility. It provides a lot of choice for customers. And what we found, which again we're really excited about, is that when people subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, not only do they have access to this great selection, but they're also reading about 30% more as well on average. And so you're talking about improving people's habit of reading, which we're really passionate about and we're really excited about to help the world to read more.
When you say 30% more books, 30% more time reading, what's your measure that comes up to that pretty impressive performance?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily books. We look at reading as, in any business you kind of break it all down to its simplest form, and for us it's number of pages read, right? Okay. And so in terms of number of pages read, and pages are all sort of normalized to make sure that a page is a page is a page. And in terms of number of pages read, people are reading about on average 30% more.
Huh, that's cool.
And Kindle Unlimited is also great for authors as well. In the last 12 months alone, authors have earned about $209 million through our KDP Select program. You know what KDP is, our Kindle Direct Publishing program. Not only is KU great for authors, but it's great for readers alike. And so, having that combination has been really fun. Last year, we also announced and released Prime Reading. So Prime Reading is our benefit for Prime, where customers can read about 1,000 books, magazines, and audiobooks for free with a Prime membership. And this is great because it really does introduce Kindle to a lot of customers who maybe hadn't been introduced to digital reading, maybe tried it once at one point, but haven't come back. And so this gives us the ability to sort of talk to those customers again and to say, look, now you have access to 1,000 books, magazines, and audiobooks basically for free. They might be subscribing to Prime for the 2-day shipping or for Prime Video, and now they have this great benefit with Prime Reading as well. And this year, Prime Reading has been expanded to the UK, to Germany, and to Japan. So very cool program. And as you know, the books and content that are in Prime Reading are also available in Kindle Unlimited. So if you do happen to subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, you have access to all of that content plus a lot more.
Does the Prime Reading, is it the same limit of 10 books at a time as I have in KU?
It is. As I mentioned, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, and we still view it as day one for digital reading. We look across all of the work we're doing. We're just excited to have more people reading and to be reading digitally. And so Part of what we'll talk to you about today is about phones and tablets. We spoke with you a couple weeks ago about e-reader, our Kindle device business, and now we're here to talk about phones and tablets. They tend to be a fast-growing segment for us, and that's something we're excited about. It's people who can use their phones, whether it's while commuting on a bus or sitting on a beach or whatever it happens to be. They can use their phone, what they already have in their pocket, to continue reading right from where they left off. And specifically, we're here to talk to you about three things. The first one is that it's easier than ever to turn your phone or tablet into a book, so you can read anytime, anywhere. The second is that Kindle is really an app built for book lovers, and in many ways it's built by book lovers. This comes through, I hope, in the design and what we're going to talk to you about today. And it's also something that we wanted to make it super easy for customers to be able to go from reading the pages of their book to their personal library to their personal bookstore. And third, starting on Kindle for iOS, we're introducing a new way to discover and discuss books with friends in the Goodreads community. And this is something we are very, very excited about. People typically, they tell us all the time that they discover books through friends, through their social networks. And in fact, when we talk to customers, they tell us that more than over 50% of the recommendations that they get come from close friends and family. And for me, it's probably closer to 100%. I think I can't remember the last book I read that didn't come through a recommendation. My father-in-law over the summer recommended Sapiens, which, if you haven't read, is just incredible. And it's a really fun book to jump onto Goodreads and discuss with people who have read it, and read someone's notes and someone's highlights from the book. I can share my own notes and highlights from the book. So lots and lots of cool stuff that sort of, as we like to say, while reading happens in a lot of cases in a private space, books have always been social. And so this idea of reading and sort of the reading by yourself, but then opening up and discussing with friends and family is something we're really, really excited about. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Seth. Actually, before I do that, since we're on the phone, I just wanted to open it up to see if you have any other questions.
No, that's good. Good base for just excited to see what you've done.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
The way the chime session worked, I wasn't actually seeing Mike and Seth. I could hear them, but I did have a great view of the iPhone that Seth used for this demo. So if you can imagine watching what happens on the iPhone screen as he's talking through these features, that's what I was seeing there in the closet in Cambridge.
So, Len, I'll take you through kind of a deep dive demo of what we've built, just to show you some of the things we're excited about. I wanted to start with the two app tiles you see on the screen right now, just confirming you can see what's on the shared screen here.
Yep, I see a new app that has the boy facing in the other direction.
All right, you are on it then. So a couple details. You pointed out one. So what we did is we looked at the older app tile that we had, and we really thought about kind of what we want to do to set the scene for the new redesign and how we wanted to think about it. So one of the things we did here is we zoomed into the reading moment of the kid reading under the tree. And we really zoomed far enough in that you really just get a close-up of that sense of the intimacy of a book and reading and what that brings as you think about escape and, again, about sanctuary. When we chatted with our customers and we listened to them about what mattered to them about reading, it's things that obviously matter to all of us about reading. That word sanctuary, that sense of sanctuary came up repeatedly. So we wanted to really have that be part of the DNA of our brand and the evolution of our brand as expressed in this app. So a little bit closer there, a little bit of a mood setting moment here on the icon. And then in just one moment, I'm going to tap it, and you'll see the full scene, and that's kind of a modernized version of our classic scene of the kid reading under the tree. So I'm going to tap that now. You're just going to see it for a moment because it just covers the load of the app. But Stephanie will send you the high-resolution version of it. I think it's a really beautiful piece of artwork. But okay, here we go. I'm going to tap it. So you just get it from, but it's
Breaking, just to give you a little description of what that new opening shot looks like. You do see it just briefly. The tree is a silhouette, as is the boy. That's the way it's always been. The sky is got some subtle aspects to it, which I took a screenshot on my iPhone so I could study it. There's a meteor striking through the sky just below the word Kindle, and above the tree there looks like a suggestion of some mountains in the background of the tree. So it's quite a lovely scene that's painted here, and it does emphasize that moment of particularly a young reader just falling into a book and maybe reading something that might change his or her life.
Kind of beautifully colored, has a lot of detail, rich details in it that we hope really sets the mood for what you're going to experience, which is whatever each person's individual sanctuary is, whatever their place they go is. Could be on a bus that you find it, could be at home in your chair, whatever it is. You kind of get a sense of that being set in the opening part of it.
Seth, I've got a question for you. You're the creative director. Any reason why the boy is facing in the other direction from the alignment in the original view?
Yeah, there's two reasons I'll give you. One is just a compositional one, so I'm going to jump back. So when we removed the word Kindle and we looked at how we wanted to have the scene be composed, having kind of that empty space and then the boy on the right didn't compositionally feel as right to us as having the space kind of begin with the presence of the kid on the left. The other reason was in many cultures, left to right is the way that cultures read, for Latin-based languages especially. And so there was something about the boy facing from kind of the back looking to the right, which felt a little more in line with the way many cultures, not all cultures, but many cultures read.
How about it being a boy, knowing that probably maybe even more than half of the readers are girls?
Yeah, it's a great question.
It's a question that Mike Torres fielded. I have a feeling this was a tough question because it would be very difficult to change the gender of this iconic image for the Kindle, and not changing it poses issues as well. And this is what he had to say about that.
You know, we don't look at the icon as sort of indicative of the diversity of Kindle readers all up. I mean, you know, we have a lot of things that we're exploring in terms of being able to use the scene in various ways. And this was, you know, this is just our first design.
I want to step in with a little bit of my philosophy of how I ask questions of Amazon executives in sessions like this. I'm obviously a fan. We're all fans here. This is not like being grilled by CNN or someone from the traditional news. But when questions come up that I think could be useful to ask, I'm not afraid to ask them. I also don't want to get in a situation like this into some kind of a back and forth about the gender of the boy, and I want to move forward in a positive way that indicates that, hey, you're still among friends here, so feel free to open up and speak in a way that's candid and that I think is more interesting. So I wanted to let Mike know that was a perfectly good answer to my question.
Sure, makes sense. Okay.
Right. Okay, I'll jump. More questions, Len? Sorry.
No, that's good.
So moving inside of the app, one of the first things you'll notice is we've introduced a new light theme to the app. I want to tell you a little bit about our inspiration for that. So we thought about the reading experience itself, and we thought about creating a sense of continuity between the pages of the books you're reading and the app. So as you move more and more between those two areas, we just wanted a sense for customers that those were seamless, that transition was kind of easy and something that felt natural. So we wanted to introduce that light theme, which complemented the majority of our customers' reading experience. And then just stepping back, if you'll humor me a moment, I'd love to tell you about kind of our vision for the app redesign and the new Kindle app that guided us as we went on this journey. It was important to us, as Mike mentioned, we wanted to design this app exclusively for readers and book lovers. We didn't just want to have an app that was modernized or new or followed, you know, whatever the latest design trend was. All those things, of course, were factors, but we wanted this app to really feel and authentically be something where a book lover found a home. So we looked to a lot of different sources of inspiration, but in the end, we landed on the pages of actual books themselves as kind of the North Star for our vision. We actually created an internal design system called Page UI, which was based on the principles of a page of a book. So if you think about a page of a book, it's some of the most minimal and functional design that's ever been, right? You've got kind of a blank surface in the page, and then you have the fonts on the page, and you have a few decisions you can make as a designer, but they're very functional decisions, like what font do I use, what's the leading of that font, the kerning of that font, the ligatures, and you can really create very subtle detailing that makes for a better, more fluid, more natural experience. And that felt like the right inspiration for how we would make decisions for the app kind of entirely. So I'll give you a couple examples of how that comes through. So one, the light theme that I just mentioned and the continuity with pages. The bottom navigation area, you'll see just the icon choices that you'll see throughout the app. There's a lightness and a crispness to the line weights that feels in our minds reminiscent to kind of the weight of a font. We don't use big, heavy elements. We use kind of lighter and crisper elements. I'm going to switch over now to a list view of my books. Right now I'm looking at kind of a grid view with the bigger covers. I'm going to tap this menu on the top right, switch to list view. And I just wanted to show you in this view, I'm sure you're familiar when we released, about 2 years ago, we released Bookerly.
Yes.
And that was a font really built for reading. And so we wanted to bring kind of the gravitas and that sense of literary just prowess that Bookerly was really good at into the app design itself. So we didn't just use a sans serif UI font. We actually brought Bookerly in as the font we use for book titles. So you'll notice all the titles of the book have a serifed font, which is Bookerly, which gives it a little bit of an embellishment at the end of each of the characters to really help the eye flow more naturally across those. So again, subtle detail, but one of those things that feels like a uniquely literary or an app built for book lovers as opposed to just clean and modern. And then I'll point out one more subtle detail. And there's many of these throughout, but I'm just giving you kind of a high-level view. I'm going to tap on the More menu on the bottom right there. Mm-hmm. And this is a very subtle detail, but it's also one we're really proud of because I think it demonstrates where the team's head was at when it comes to the depth and richness of some of the design story that we're wanting to tell here. So if you look at the top bar, you see the lightness or the whiteness of that bar. And then as you go down and you shift to the transition to the background image, you see how it gets much more gray or significantly more gray underneath that bar. And then if you look at the very bottom, it goes back to kind of white, and then the bottom bar is white again. So if you look carefully, there's basically a subtle glow around the top and the edges of the background. And then it kind of gets closer to white in the middle and at the bottom. And the reason we did that, when we were trying to think about what background image do we want to use, the reason why we didn't just do a pure white or a pure color is because of the patina of the print pages of books themselves. So we thought about, just giving you a little bit of context on that, we thought about you think about a print book on a shelf, and the book is closed on a shelf, and the edges of that book get exposed to the humidity in the air and the changes that happen over the course of years, and they absorb some of the character of what's around them. And then years later, you open that book and you see a little bit of that kind of glow and that subtle character that has infused into the edges of pages. And so that's one of the romance of reading and romance of print books that was something that we all related to and was part of the decision. So that's not one that everyone's going to notice. We know.
I'm having trouble seeing it on my screen, so I'm looking at your view of the iPhone. Are you saying that the background starting at where it says Goodreads profile, is there a different hue there than just above the icons on the bottom, Library Community Discover? On my screen, all of that block looks sort of the same off-white.
It is different, yeah. It'll probably be easier to see when you actually use the app.
It is possible to see this distinction. I'm looking at my iPhone 7 screen now, and there is a change in the hue. I was tempted to leave this out because I thought, I love the difference between serif and sans serif fonts and some of these things that Seth is talking about, but I'm not sure it's everybody's cup of tea to go that deeply into the actual design of the page. But I love how they were thinking about the way pages at the edge of the page, you you get a different hue, and therefore that's what they're going to make the screen look like on the iPhone. You can imagine these discussions that went on among the design team. And I think it underscores the earlier point that these are people who are designing an app for reading that start with their love of books and how the page in a book, turns hue over time, and that tickled me. I left that in, and hope that's of interest to you as well.
Like on the device I'm looking at that I'm actually screen sharing from, that's a lot more easy to see. But I think between the screen sharing and then the monitor you might be using to view it and all the rest of it,
I think I can detect it, so it's probably going to just be more visible on the phone itself. That's a really subtle bit of design work that's impressive.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and the goal here is not that this stuff reaches out and grabs people and shakes them, per se, but it's more of those, like when we look to the print books and to the beauty of the books that have been designed over the course of years, a lot of the detail in them is pretty subtle. So we wanted that to be something that over the course of time you just maybe noticed or maybe created that kind of vibe that was right for our customers without being too in their face. So That's just one of those kind of on the far end of subtle examples of some of the choices we've made.
We are about 20 minutes away from 44:58, and so I'm thinking, well, I could let this go with the full length rather than trim it. But I think there's a section here where I can describe to you some of the things that Seth was showing me on his screen. If you've got your iPhone or your tablet or your Android device handy and you want to open the Kindle app as I'm talking you through this, I think it'll give you a chance to appreciate some of the changes to it, and we'll move through them and then pick up the last part of the briefing as we get toward the end of the show. When you open the library tab on your app, and if you've chosen the grid view, you're going to see nice big images of the covers of the books, larger than they were in the older app. They also remind me of the way Amazon displays the books at its stores, where all of the books are shown face out. And so there's more homage to the power of the cover of a book, which I think is pretty smart. Another very pleasing part of the design is that if you're reading a book on the app and then you want to go somewhere else, like see your Goodreads profile or just switch to something else in your library, you tap in the middle of the screen. That brings up the page flip view, and there's a down arrow in the upper left. And if you tap on that, you go back to see all of your books or whatever. But it maintains the cover of the book that you just left. I've got one here, Happy Dreams, and its nice red cover is at the bottom of the navigation bar. So if I want to do these other things, it's very easy for me to get back to the book that I was reading. And as Seth described it, this is a way of putting the emphasis on the book that the reader is reading, even while giving them access to go other places. So I told him I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one that I think we're excited about. As we've actually used this and we've gotten some feedback from some of the customers we've tested with, this feature has been particularly loved and really, really helpful to people to keep their story kind of as the center of the experience.
Seth, at this point, walked me through some other features of the navigation. And if you're looking at your screen on the app now, these are the icons at the bottom when you're in your library mode or you're not in the book itself. So you've got library where you can see your books. If you tap on community, you get a view of what's going on at Goodreads with people that you're following. And Discover, he described as my personal bookstore. That kind of gives you a place where you can find other books that you might want to read. The More tab sets you up so that you can see your Goodreads profile. You can see what books you're currently reading, want to read, and read. You get kind of orienting yourself that way. As he was going through the overview of what was on the screen, he mentioned a term that I'd never heard before, and maybe you haven't either.
So basic library management is present and just available on that top bar, so a little bit easier to access than it was previous in the Hamburger Menu.
What's the Hamburger Menu?
Yeah, let me show you that in the old app. So in the previous app, on the top left, those three lines have been kind of affectionately referred to in the UX.
Oh, they look like a hamburger.
As a hamburger, yeah. So it's very, very inventive.
Another improvement in the design of the app has to do with search, and what's done there is that there is a search bar no matter which of those navigation choices you've made, library, community, discover, and so you're not having to go to the Hamburger Menu and go find a search. That search bar is always there. I think that's another example of things which they notice by how people are using their apps and their devices. In passing, it came up that in the past several months, the search ability within a book has been improved. And as I checked on that just now, you can enter something in search in the book, and you can search your own notes and highlights. You can search the book. You can search Google, Wikipedia. So they've kind of quietly improved the ability to navigate within a book. And now within the app, that search bar is always ready. And this follows from their understanding that we hear about books by word of mouth, but we don't always get the exact title or maybe even the author. But if there's some shred of information that a friend has mentioned to a book in this app now, you don't have to go to the Hamburger Menu. You can just tap on that search bar and you'll be very quickly where you want to go. The last feature set, before I had a chance to ask some questions at the end of the demo, has to do with the Goodreads integration, and that goes with the community icon that you can tap at the bottom of the Kindle app screen. There's quite a bit of conversation about this in the demo, and also you can tell that the Goodreads integration was important because when Amazon did the press release, they quoted Otis Chandler, the founder and the CEO of Goodreads, saying that this is a significant new way to have things that you can do with your Goodreads friends from within the Kindle app. For example, if you tap on community, you're going to see what your friends are reading, what they want to read, what they have already read. It's easy to make comments, to like things which are being posted by your friends from within the app. You can go to your own profile and see what your books look like. If you don't have a Goodreads profile, you're not using Goodreads, if you tap on the community icon, you're going to see some information about books that might be of interest to you based on the genres that you read by top reviewers at Goodreads. So it's kind of a way to introduce people that aren't using Goodreads to what can happen there. More than 65 million members of Goodreads compared to, I think, 19 when Amazon purchased the company 4 years ago. So it has had the impact on me of reviving my use of Goodreads. One thing I did today was I had a lot of people listed as friends at Goodreads that weren't kind of like personal friends. There might be people that have friended me and sort of the way I handle my Facebook community. But I see the advantage on Goodreads of having my friends be really people who I know, that when I see that name, I can picture a person, or I think, well, I met that person at a conference. And so I paired it back to 100 friends, and these are the people that will show up on my notifications in the Kindle app. I would like to invite any of you listening to reach out to me with a friend request on Goodreads. Many of you already are on my list, and you might... I'm trying to think, because if I didn't recognize your name, but if you could send me an email at podchronicles@gmail.com to alert me that you were reaching out to be a friend on Goodreads so that I'd know, and I'd certainly add you. So, because I think that the benefit of Goodreads really does lie in the personalizing of the people that you're going to hear from and what they're reading. So that's a change I've made, and I think I probably am going to be spending more time at Goodreads using this app. There was one way you could get to the underlying Goodreads app. I think if you drill down through profile or whatever, I think one thing that would have been nice for somebody who is an active Goodreads member is if from this new Kindle app there was a Goodreads icon that would just take you to the main Goodreads homepage, because there's a lot of things that happen there that aren't included in this new tighter integration with the Kindle app. And I think it'd be nice to have sort of a portal where you could get to the full Goodreads site from this app rather than just having kind of a curated version of what you can do at Goodreads. As we finished the demo, kind of the formal presentation of all the things that the new app can do, I had trouble differentiating the sound of the voices, but I think that Mike is the one who summed up and invited me to ask some questions.
Yeah, so that hopefully, Len, that gives you an overview of just some of the work we've done with this release. This, in our minds, this is the biggest kind of update we've made collectively to the Kindle app in a long time. It's a major redesign, and it's really an all-new app. So love to hear any questions you have or thoughts or just reactions or feedback.
The first question I wanted to ask was about the difference in highlighting on an iOS or Android app for Kindle and the Fire and the Oasis. This is something which has kind of bugged me. It seems like from a reader's point of view, why should it be any different on these various devices? So when I posed that question, I did get an answer to that.
On my Kindle Fire, and I think on my Kindle Oasis, if I highlight a passage like you just did, I lift my finger off at the end of the highlighting, and then I have to tap the screen for the highlight to actually be entered. But on this app, and this has been the case up till now, all you have to do is highlight the passage, and the minute your finger leaves the screen, it's entered. So it's sort of like one less tap is necessary to highlight on this app than on the Kindle and on the Fire. Is that right?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think you are so close to this that it is really a very good observation. We on iOS we support what Seth showed, which sort of a faster highlighting model. So it doesn't pop up the bar that
right.
lets you choose the colors and lets you share on iOS, and that's been that way for several years on iOS. On Android and on the Kindle devices, what it's actually doing is it's highlighting. So the highlight is happening, but then the bar is there to let you change colors really quickly, or to share, or to add a note. Now, one of the cool things that we have done this year on the Kindle devices, for devices like the Oasis and the Voyage, which do have hardware buttons, what you can do is if you highlight and that bar shows up, you can actually just keep reading and then tap the page turn button to move to the next page. You don't actually have to tap to dismiss the bar. The highlight is saved. And in addition, that actually works with the swipe gesture as well to turn the page.
Yep. Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. The other question is somewhat related to when I see the update, and especially the whole idea that you started from the page and that's sort of your reference point from design. That all seems pretty compelling to me. When I open up my Kindle Fire now, I'm not going to be seeing the same kind of design choices that you're making here in terms of the lightness of the background and all that. In that sense, is the Fire Kindle interface lagging a little from what you're doing here on iOS and Android?
We chose for this release to focus on iOS and Android, and that was in part because on Fire tablets, Fire tablet itself has its own design language, and you can see this as you sort of move from app to app, or as you navigate through the tablet, through the Fire OS experience. We wanted to make sure that we still stayed true to that, so it requires a little bit of different thinking to both fit within sort of the Fire design language as well as the Kindle and the heritage of print and heritage of reading. So, we don't have anything to announce today for Fire tablet updates. Today is really about iOS and Android, but it's a really good question.
Are there any differences in the iOS and the Android versions of what you're going to be announcing or releasing tomorrow?
The biggest difference to point out is that the Goodreads feature set, so the community tab specifically, is starting on Kindle for iOS and then coming to Android at a later time.
Okay. And these will be available starting tomorrow just by updating your apps at the App Store for either platform?
That's right. They start rolling out tomorrow. They probably won't be available for everyone tomorrow, just as similar to how we kind of always release these. We do a staged rollout over the course of several days, but if you go to the App Store, you should be able to tap the update button. It just may not automatically update for a couple days.
If I've got the original Kindle one, will it just the old version of the boy under the tree will be replaced with the new icon, and everything else will... I'm not going to have two versions of the Kindle app on my phone when this happens.
Absolutely, yeah. The app icon will just get updated, and you'll just hopefully just at some point throughout the day, or maybe the next day, you'll just notice that icon changed.
I think everybody understands that more people are reading Kindle books on smartphones, Android and iPhone, and tablets compared with the original e-ink Kindle. Can you say anything about that shift, is it happening? I doubt you can give me any specifics in terms of numbers, but what, from a broader view of how your customers are reading their Kindle books now versus 5 years ago or something, what are we seeing when we think about the smartphone platform in particular?
Yeah, well, I think there's really two things that we can say about that. The first one is that Kindle devices are still our most popular way to read globally. So, when you look across sort of our global marketplaces, the Kindle devices are still the most popular. It's still, it's still a great way to read. In our view, it's the best way to read. But phones are growing very fast, and that is something that we're watching and we're staying close to, of course, and we're making sure that customers always have that choice. What we've found is that people who read on Kindle devices and on their phones, and maybe on an Amazon Echo as well, while they're listening to an audiobook or they're listening to Alexa read a Kindle book, those tend to be our best customers, of course, because they're the ones who are reading the most. They're the ones who are finding new content. They're the ones who are talking to their friends about it. And so, for us, we want to make sure we provide customers the choice. If you're on a bus and your only option to read that day is with your phone, we want to make sure you can still do it. If you're on a plane and you don't happen to have your Kindle and you have your tablet, you're watching a movie, we want you to be able to read there too. So we really want to make sure that we provide as many options for customers as possible. But again, phones and tablets are growing. Phones specifically are growing fast, and e-readers are still a very, very core part of what we do.
I had a follow-up question, but we ran out of time. I have a feeling that in the United States, the percentage of people reading on tablets and smartphones has advanced over the number of people reading on Kindles. They seem to be pointedly saying that on a worldwide basis, the Kindle is still the dominant way to read. And it doesn't really bother me that there is a shift. I mean, it's all good if people are reading on tablets and smartphones. I love my Kindle. I love the Oasis. I love the original platform. And each time one of these encounters with the Kindle team comes my way, I'm reassured that this is in no way an orphan platform that is going to be ignored because of the rising importance of the other kinds of devices. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. I think all of the platforms are going to be improved continuously, sometimes in big chunks like what we have here on this app, sometimes in smaller improvements which don't actually merit a press release, or they just sort of sneak into the platform, and those of us who are watching it closely can sometimes see that something has changed. The overall pattern is relentless improvement of these devices and electronic reading on the Kindle. Pretty good stuff. That's it for this week's show. There was a lot of news I could have talked about. The Amazon earnings surprised everybody. The stock went way up. The bookstores in the readout, it looks like there's not much revenue coming from them yet. That's no surprise. I've got a list of things which I'll catch up with next week that I had to delay so that we could focus on this new app and the demo in New York. My guest next week is going to be a classmate of mine at Harvard, David Ignatius, who's a renowned foreign affairs columnist at the Washington Post. He's been there for 30 years. He's also a novelist, and he's got his 10th novel is coming out, and I was able to follow up from running into him at the reunion to get an advanced reader copy from his publicist at Norton. The book is titled The Quantum Spy, a thriller, and it's got, there's going to be a review of it tomorrow, Sunday, in the New York Times. Also, there's quite a blurb from the book at David's website. It's from Leon Panetta, former director of the CIA and Secretary of Defense, and he writes, "The Quantum Spy provides a thrilling window into the future world of high-tech espionage. David Ignatius may call it a novel, but for those of us who know the work of the intelligence community, this book is nothing less than a real-life insight into the ongoing battle for dominance in the digital world. The names may be fictitious, but what they are fighting for is very real!" I'm about 20% through the book, and it is tightly written. It's a page-turner, and you do have the feeling that it's a fictionalized view of some very real issues written by somebody that knows them from decades of covered. So I'll be talking with David next week, I think on Wednesday. Give me time to finish reading the book, and then he'll be sit down for a chat about it for next week's show. If you ordered an all-new Oasis, you'll probably have it in your hands next week, October 31st, Halloween, and I'll certainly have a lot to say about it in next week's show, and I'll probably have a little bit of extra time to take a look at it so I can give you a full response. At just before 3 a.m. Eastern Time last night, I managed to sneak out of bed and not wake up Darlene or the Yorkie Claire and pre-order an iPhone 10, and it will be due a week from today, so I'll be getting that in Cambridge. Really looking forward to it. This is Len Edgerly in Ocean Park, Maine for the Kindle Chronicles. I really appreciate your taking the time to listen to my show. Have a great day. Bye.